not a religion in the classical sense, not worship, and not a belief in God, like in Christianity or Islam. Buddhism is like a silent conversation with yourself that you never finish, because it doesn't give answers. It gives silence. And in this silence, sometimes you hear yourself for the first time. It was born in India over 2,500 years ago. Buddha didn't fall from the sky, but just a man, Siddhartha, who had everything. And he voluntarily went into the void to find out why the human heart knows no peace. His search became the path of millions. But Buddhism doesn't impose. It doesn't shout. Its philosophy is like water, quiet, strong, doesn't judge, doesn't punish. It just shows you suffer, and you could be free. And that's what makes it different. It doesn't save you. It doesn't promise heaven or hell. It silently points to the cause of pain, attachment, desire, ego. And it also silently points to the way out. But the way out is not through faith, but through practice, through observation, through mindfulness, through the very meditation that seems to someone to be just sitting, although in reality it is like holding fire in your hands and not getting burned. Who believes? Millions. In Tibet, in Thailand, in Japan. And not because tradition demands it, but because they are close to the feeling of life as a cycle, not as a struggle. Because Buddhism does not fight the world. It accepts, and this is the greatest strength, no hostility. No, you are a sinner, and I am saved. Only the path, and every step is your responsibility. I do not know if it is possible to be completely Buddhist, but I know that everyone who has ever truly sat in silence has already touched this path, because there is nothing superfluous in Buddhism, only contemplation, only breathing, only awareness, and I do not worship Buddha, but I respect the silence from which he came, because silence is his temple. It is peace that is his power. It is letting go that is his prayer. And perhaps one day humanity will understand that the greatest victory is not to change the world, but to change yourself in it. Because to change yourself means to get out of the prison that you have built for yourself. And that is why Buddhism does not shout slogans, does not lead crusades, does not force, because it knows those who are not ready will not hear. And those who are ready are already on the path. In a world where everything revolves around achievement, noise, success, Buddhism speaks of the opposite, about stopping, about giving up, about peace. Where other teachings seek strength and control, Buddhism seeks strength and letting go. The more you hold on, the more you suffer. This is one of the four noble truths. All life is suffering. Suffering has a reason. This reason is our desire. And there is a path that leads to liberation. But this path is not simple. It is not one ritual, not one prayer. It is a lifelong path. 8 rules, 8 components. Right view, right thinking, right speech. But right is not in the sense of it should be this way, but in the sense of it is this way that liberates. And this is where the magic begins. Because instead of being a slave to an idea, you become an explorer. You stop running. You begin to see, not the world, but how you react to it. Buddhism is a mirror that does not distort. Sometimes this is the scariest thing you can see, because in the mirror you are without masks, without roles, without names, simply you. But it is at this moment that there is a possibility of awakening, not magical, but human, to understand that pain does not need to be defeated. It needs to be accepted. Fear does not need to be destroyed. It needs to be embraced. The world does not need to be changed, only the way you look at it. That is why Buddhism is a philosophy that does not look for winners, does not draw boundaries, does not impose truth. It gives space. It says, here's the way. If you are ready, go. Not for God, not for someone, but for yourself. And yes, sometimes it seems cold, because where's the warmth of the heart? Where's the belief in a miracle? But perhaps the greatest miracle is to taste tea as if you were living for the first time. Breathe and feel every breath. Go and not think about what will happen tomorrow, because you are, and that is enough. Buddhism teaches not to survive, but to be, not to fight, but to swim, not to hold, but to let go. And perhaps in this world where everyone is searching, it is the one who has stopped, who has already found everything. And here you are already sitting in silence, not because you force yourself, but because for the first time in a long time, silence has become natural. This is not an escape. This is a return to yourself, to the real, to that which is not hidden behind statuses, not measured by success. But how is it different from other faiths? Buddhism does not say believe and you will be saved. It says know and you'll become free. There is no God here in the classical sense, an all-seeing creator who punishes or rewards. There is a law, dharma. There is reality as it is, and there is you as an observer and a participant at the same time. This is an inner path, not external worship, but deep, intimate work on yourself. There is no sin as a brand. There is unconsciousness, and the task is not to repent, but to wake up. Where did he come from? It all started with a person, not with a supernatural phenomenon. Siddhartha Gautama, a prince who had everything. But when he saw suffering, death, and pain, he understood. In this world, there is no true joy without understanding its nature. And he went, not to the kingdom, but to the forest. He became a beggar, a seeker, and then Buddha, not a god, but someone who woke up. And that's the whole point. Because if one woke up, then everyone can. Who believes in it? In Asia, millions. All over the world, even more. But it is interesting that Buddhism is often accepted not as a faith, but as a philosophy of life. Even those who do not pray, do not meditate according to canons, take from it the essence. Awareness, compassion, moderation, depth of view. Because everyone already has light. Buddha said, don't believe me. Check everything yourself. Why is it like this? Because it does not try to be the first. Because it does not fight with other teachings. Because it does not promise paradise after death, but gives the key to peace right now. This is a teaching without noise, but with the depth of the ocean. This is not a march. It is a path with bare feet on wet earth. And with each step, it is easier to breathe, because there is nothing to prove, only to live and to see. How do I treat it? With respect, with silence. I am not a Buddhist, but I see in a mirror that reflects not only the human, but also the eternal. Because every person who knows how to be silent and listen to themselves is already a little monk. Because everyone who has ever sat at night in silence, thinking about meaning, has already touched Buddhism, even without knowing it. Because this philosophy is about the human, not about the distant, about a heart that knows how to not only beat, but also feel. And maybe when the world is noisy, when you don't know who to be, where to go, just sit, just look, just breathe. Because sometimes, to find yourself, you don't have to run. You have to stop. Buddhism is not about escaping from life, but about immersing yourself in it. But not in the noise, not in the struggle for every breath of air, and in the real, the kind that doesn't need embellishments. In a world where we always want to be someone, Buddha taught us to be nothing, not in the sense of insignificant, but in the sense of being free from roles. And it is in this emptiness that power is born. Because what is power in the eyes of Buddhism? Not muscles, not power, not influence, but the ability not to get attached, not to be a slave to emotions, not to become a victim of your own desires, not to chase recognition, because you have already recognized yourself, not to be afraid of change, because you know that everything changes. This is a quiet power that does not shout, does not prove, does not argue. It sits within you, like a light in a lantern that shines even when it is not seen. Its power is an inner freedom, to be and to know that this is enough, to live and not to cling, to breathe and not be afraid of it. Buddha did not promise that life would be easy, but he showed how it could be easier to bear. And this ease is not in avoiding suffering, but in understanding its nature. When you see everything as temporary, you are not afraid of losses. When you accept yourself completely, you stop competing with the whole world. When you live here and now, you stop being afraid of the future. And then, that is when real power appears, not to change the world, but to see that it is already as it should be. Simply learn to see. And if only one thought remains from all that has been said, let it be this. Life does not need to be improved. It needs to be realized. You do not have to be perfect. You do not have to respond. It is enough to be. Do not run away from suffering. Understand it. Do not seek happiness. See it in what is. Don't try to become someone. Just return to yourself, because that's where your home is. Not in images, not in titles, not in other people's thoughts, but in the silence where there are no questions and no answers are needed. Buddhism is not about religion, it's about the path. And the path is not always straight, not always easy, but always yours. And maybe on this night, when the whole world falls silent and you are left alone with yourself, you will hear not an external voice, but an internal peace, and it will whisper, you are already what you are trying to become. Just remember,